Welcome to the podcast called The Battle for African Agriculture, where we wear the lens of political economy to look at African agriculture, the future of African agriculture. My name is Milion Belay. I'm the General Coordinator of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa. All of you who are watching, please subscribe and like and share. You'll help us to reach the wider audience if you could do that, please. Today, on the Battle of African Agriculture, we're joined by Dr. Awegechew Teshome, an agricultural biodiversity scientist whose work spans more than 3 decades in 10 countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Beginning in Ethiopia, one of the world's centers of origin for cultivated crops, his early research demonstrated that traditional farmers' seed selection systems are scientifically rigorous and essential for resilience. He has worked with the International Development Research Center, the International Plant Genetic Resources Institute, the University of Ottawa, and USCC Canada's Seed of Survival program, helping pioneer farmers-led participatory plant breeding and on-farm conservation. His book, which I've read, all starts with seeds, draws from experience in Ethiopia, Mali, Nepal, Bolivia, India, Bangladesh, Cuba, Honduras, Timor-Leste, and Burkina Faso, arguing that the future of food security depends on strengthening agricultural biodiversity, not narrowing it. Dr. Teshome, welcome.
Thank you, Milen. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's talk about seeds as foundation. You write, in All Starts with Seeds. You write All Starts with Seeds. When you say all starts with seeds, are you speaking biologically, politically, or civilizationally?
All of the above, including also another one, the fourth one. I will add to that. Yes, when I speak about all start with seeds, it starts biologically. If you look at the rhizosphere, the soil plant environment deep in the soil profile, where seed resurrected to life is mysterious and miraculous. And seeds are life at rest. So perpetuation of life continues, is guaranteed, is going on because seeds are at rest. They are the basis for all plant life perpetuation. So that is a biological. Around the culture, or if I take you back to the creation of agriculture, domestication of plants and animals, even livestock, it starts with the genetic material, in this case, the seed. So the farmers selected those seeds as a foundation for agriculture. So seeds are the foundation and continue to save, exchange, maintain to this stage. If farmers haven't saved, maintained, exchanged seeds, the kind of agriculture that we see now today may not exist. So is the basis for civilization. To me, crop domestication, agriculture is the greatest achievement of humanity because that is the basis for the thinking, for the spirituality and all these things. And it happened because people, farmers, the domesticators, the family farmers, indigenous people, and the traditional farmers created those seeds. And now they're the basis of our civilization. Politically, yes, seed means power, control, as symbol of power, symbol of resurrection, symbol of sovereignty. So anyone with seeds has the power to sustain itself, to move ahead. So seeds are the basis. That is the power in all its manifestation and in all its magnitude. The fourth one, I need to say that seeds relates to Ethiopia, where that enables me or gives me to reach to this opportunity. Right after the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, early 90s, 93, 94, there was negotiation. The whole countries came together. So that was
Mhm.
the awareness of the genetic diversity environmental issue
Mhm.
started. And then in Center of Origin and Diversity, there was a need to do research
Mhm.
on agricultural biodiversity and seed diversity and others. This Ethiopia was one of them. And I happened to be a graduate student here in Canada. I was selected to go to
Mhm.
Ethiopia and do the research. I didn't choose Ethiopia, but the Ethiopian genetic resources, the farmers' knowledge and guaranteed gave that opportunity because it is the
Mhm.
center of origin. So there was a program called Seeds of Survival in Ethiopia that was started in Ethiopia. So I was a candidate along with other collaborators to do work on seed diversity. So
Mhm.
because of that work, the research work that emanated, generated from Ethiopia sent me all over the place. And now I'm talking to you. So the four reasons that I use all start with seeds. Thank you.
Okay, that's four reason. The fourth is your personal reason now.
I
Okay.
need to give credit. I needed to give credit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Awegechew, across the 10 countries you worked in, what was the one common lesson about seeds?
Okay. Actually, I work more than a dozen of countries directly with
Oh,
common
okay.
desert and
Mm.
experience is close to 40 countries. These 10 countries, I established some criteria at the end of my research and all these things. I say I need to give witness to all the farmers who taught me who do this work
Mm.
for humanity. So
Mhm.
if we look at their seed maintenance,
Mhm.
it varies. It varies
Mm.
in a different way, but at
Mm.
the end of the day, these two countries, the 10 countries, have a strategy
Mhm.
common in a different way based on their culture and environment. So they maintain diversity or seeds by culture, by season, by space, by agroecosystem. So what we call spatial temporal dynamics. So to
Mhm.
them, seed is not a commodity. It's not just an input. It's a source of sustenance. It's a source
Mhm.
of survival. It's a functional relationship. That's what's the common message I get about seeds and all over the place.
It's very, very interesting. What happens to a society when control over seed or seed system shifts away from farmers?
That is a very risky business. So
Mm.
means it's losing. When it shifts, they lose their functional role. Their
Mm.
functional role is producers.
Mhm.
They are producers. The sun, for example, sun and plants are the producers of all this, the goods and services, the ecological thing that the whole environment and humanity depends. The same thing,
Mm.
farmers, when they lose the power, the control to their seed, they become non-producer. So
Mm.
that is fundamental, very dangerous presidents that they lose their control and instead of producers they become something else. So that is it just is not right. That is they're losing their functional role in the generation and maintenance of agriculture, ensuring sustainability and livelihood security.
Farmers as scientists, you know?
Yeah.
Your early research showed that farmers' seed selection systems are scientifically sophisticated. What did that research change for you?
Fundamental. It's just I went there, as I said, to study
Mm.
how farmers select their functional, approach, their
Mm.
functional practices in relation to the maintenance and generation of diversity. So here, diversity and their selection criteria, they go hand in hand. And
Mm-hmm.
farmer selection criteria is multifunctional,
Mm-hmm.
multi-purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one, it's not only directed to yield, it's not only, a criterion, it is selection criteria. So as farmers increase their selection criteria, diversity increases. So it
Mm-hmm.
is to meet socio-cultural needs, humanity, cultural needs, and all this is integrative, and multifunctional, inclusive, scientific, and culture-based.
Can
So
you give
here,
me examples of what you mean by multifunctionality, social, cultural?
okay,
What do you mean? Let's take a crop for Ethiopia, for example, wheat.
yeah,
So you're saying that instead of selecting a variety of wheat only for its productivity,
yeah,
they would add other characteristics. So can you explain that?
yes, yes. So when a woman farmer plants a crop, in this case, as you said, wheat or sorghum, so there are selection criteria. Number
Mm.
one, okay, not number one in your ranking. There yield, there is
Mm.
biomass, there is spirituality.
Biomass, what do
There
you mean
is
biomass?
biomass means just non-grain part of the plant
Well,
that
because
can feed the animal, that can
yes,
reach
that's
the
for the,
soil. That's
yeah,
what
exactly.
biomass.
Yes, I just want you
Yeah,
to clarify. Yeah.
yeah, it's not. And then there is the spirituality dimension.
Hmm.
And in this case, wheat, they always take into consideration at the very beginning, they praise, they thank their creator, and then at harvest, they give some portion of their harvest
Yeah.
to their faith.
Hmm.
So, so there is the spiritual dimension. There is the storability,
Okay.
marketability,
Okay.
milling quality, you know.
Hmm.
So
Milling
all
quality,
this,
meaning quality,
milling the
meaning
way how
the flour. They get the flour,
the
eh?
flour all the
Yeah.
way, you just,
Yeah.
from the grinding to the
Yeah.
table and on it.
Yeah.
The market value, does it bring any,
Yeah.
income? The
Yeah.
dietary, the nutrition. So
Yeah.
these are selection criteria.
Yeah.
So when this multifunctional selection criteria applied to the plant, because these are
Mm.
ancestral crop, land races, highly heterogeneous and segregating, they respond to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, wheat is one species, but what we call intraspecific variation within the wheat meet all these selection criteria.
What do you mean intraspecific?
The variation within. So
Wheat.
the wheat. So there is
Mm.
wheat that is good for making bread. There
Mm-hmm.
is wheat that
Mm.
is storable, that's
Mm-hmm.
not affected or anything. Quick
Mm.
maturing, long maturing, and then
Mm.
rich in biomass, and then in productivity. There are
Yeah.
lots of things. For example, if I
Yeah.
take to sorghum, there are
Mm.
many, many, many social cultural benefits
Yeah.
that comes with such.
You know, Dr. Ogicho, I went to Wallo, Warreilu, and that time EOSA, Ethiopian Organic Seed Action,
Yeah,
had a center there, that their seed banks there. And out of the seed bank, they planted, I think that time 112 varieties of wheat. Um, yeah, I don't know about the diversity in barley, for example, that we have in Ethiopia in terms of number or other crops. Can you tell me about that?
very good.
Yeah.
So to tell you, that part of Ethiopia where Warreiro is
Mm.
also part of my research area. So
Oh,
I've been
okay.
there on farm. I know what you
Hmm.
are talking. So when you mention the name now, I'm there. So those what we call, as I said earlier, intraspecific variation within a species. That is crucial. These
Hmm.
are in response, these varieties came
Mm.
into existence in response to the multifunctional farmer selection criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So barley, for example, it just is one species all the way, adjacent to Warelu, there is, in Shoa province, Mans, it just
Mm.
all the way it goes to the Ogaden. That's
Oh,
interesting.
really? Okay.
So
Mm.
Ethiopia has the largest intra-specific barley diversity in the whole world.
Wow. How many? Do we
So,
know how many?
wow, right, hundreds of them, hundreds
Oh,
of them.
really?
And the same thing with sorghum. You have got
Mm.
200, 300, and yet it is one species.
300
So
variety. Oh my
yeah,
God.
this
Mm.
is it. This is adaptive response capacity of the genetic
Mm.
resources to the multifunctional selection practices and as well as to the environmental pressures,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
drought, whether it is rainfall, frost, and all
Mm.
these things,
Mm.
they respond to that. This is the
Mm-hmm.
beauty about farmers' varieties, land races, ancestral
Mm.
crops. So
Mm.
in Wollo, because it's highland, no, Warelu, sorry. In Wollo, which is part of Wollo, there are the temperate crops, the barley, the
Mm.
wheat, the oats, and other things.
Mm.
And then they are rich, not, diversity within a species, but diversity between two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Incredible. You describe putting farmers at the center as a paradigm shift, putting farmers at the center. Why has Ministry of Agriculture policy resisted that shift?
Why? Because is coming against their power. Is
Mm,
they are
mm,
threatened.
mm, mm,
The threatened are the ones who claim to have all the solution for
mm,
agricultural biodiversity problem or for security and other thing. They think that they all know that these farmers are primitive. They don't know that this.
mhm,
So when eh, from the scientific community realize that, oh, this diversity is generated and maintained by the farmers.
mm,
No, we need to work with them. They are the
mm,
source of not only
mm,
genetic diversity of knowledge, we need to collaborate with them. We need
mm,
to shift the paradigm.
mm, mm, mm,
That is just a core. It's just sending a shock wave to the other ones. So that's why they felt threatened and secured
mhm,
because
mhm.
farmers are scientists. As I said earlier, science
Yeah.
means is an approach, is a methodology. This
Mm,
genetic diversity that the whole world depends is generated and created by them.
mm.
And this diversity. So when you shift the paradigm, there just someone has to give in, or so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
instead of collaborating, their attitude just becomes so hostile.
You know what's interesting is, due to the initiatives like VAX, I don't know how much you know about that initiative. It's a vision for African crops and soil. And they're identifying crops which they call marginalized, orphaned and whatever, and want to register them and use them, and possibly gene edit them. So now they are recognizing the value of the seeds. Previously they just want to have their own seeds, instead of farmer seed. Anyway, across Ethiopia, Mali, Nepal, and Bangladesh, did you see shared principles in how farmers manage diversity?
Yeah, diversity across the world, across the agroecosystem in different culture, whether in the New World, Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and especially where, crops originated in diversified, you see lots of similarities. Yes, there are
Mm,
different location and all these things, but the principle of generating and maintaining and using conserving diversity is the same. So when diversity. Diversity means it's sustainable. It's part of themselves. The more cultural diversity you see, the more diversity you see. The more environmental heterogeneity you see, you see more genetic diversity. The more climatic variation you see, you get the same diversity. So that's a response. So here, what we call maintaining, diversifying by culture. So farmers exchange by culture, by season, by location. So not only maintaining diversity, they also spread risks and opportunity. So this
Yep.
is a highly heterogeneous environment. So whenever I give you, for example, as we discussed earlier in Ethiopia, someone from across in Shoa will have a relative in Wollo. So that's my friend. So he gives that one, and then she gives the other one. So those genetic diversity evolve, respond to that. So if I lose, I'll go to my relative. Listen, the one I have here is not doing well. Oh, in my area, it's just doing well. You can't have it. So they maintain, diversify by culture, by genetic diversity, by season, by location. So starting from household, family, community, social, cultural landscape, and at the same time field, and then the agroecosystem, and then the landscape. This is the genetic. It's just all always in a homeostatic, functional, synergistic collaboration,
Yeah. Okay.
interaction happens. So that is whether it's in Mali, whether in Bangladesh, Nepal, or Ethiopia, anywhere. These are the principle. Using the culture,
Okay.
the space, which is the location, the agricultural land, or the season. This is spatial temporal.
One of the threats to the diversity that you eloquently describe is a green revolution agenda. And I think in your book, you acknowledge the green revolution somehow increased yield to some extent, but you also describe its limits and liabilities. What's the biggest structural flaw in the green revolution agenda for you?
Yes, I mean, when I talk about increased yield, I'm not saying that whether it is sustainable or the right measurement,
Yeah.
but the actual the measurement, just that's it.
Mm.
Yes, but there is a structural deficits, and failure, structurally, and other things. I can tell you three things. Yes, there is increase in yield alone, grain yield, but when you measure the input output, that's just a total failure. But it increased at the expense of environmental sustainability. So yes, production has increased. Biophysical degradation is unabated and huge. So yes, that's it. So at the expense of the environment is not environmentally sustainable. That's number one. Number two, there was rush, hunger to address hunger. So yes, address hunger uh, by producing highly energy dense foods. But as a consequence, there is health effect, diabetics, health-related issues. So to mitigate that, the pharmaceuticals come. There, the fertilizers, the fertilizer company, herbicides, insecticide, help boost the increased yield. And here there is, human health impact. So to mitigate that, the pharmaceuticals bring also medicine. So they work in tandem, all these things. The third aspect is focusing, overly in investing and emphasizing a very few staple crops. That caused huge diversity loss, genetic erosion. So yes, there is increase, but all these things is floundering, It's disappointing, and it happened at the expense of socio-cultural
Mhm.
uh, impact and then environmental and sustainability.
Today, thank you for that. Yeah, that's a very, very good explanation of the impact of the Green Revolution. By the way, there was research, increasing research, especially from India, anthropological research, which showed that actually it's not the Green Revolution which increased productivity. It's a change of the, what do you call it, the watering system. They use the tubes, to bring water to the agricultural plants,
Yeah.
and that's what increased the productivity. Anyway, as you know, the continent,
Drip
African continent
irrigation, are you
faces,
talking about drip irrigation?
yeah,
Okay.
not drip, they call it tube.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Today, Africa faces a new wave of biotechnology and industrial agriculture and gene editing. Are we repeating the same kind of logic in a more sophisticated form in the Green Revolution agenda?
Well, here's when we talk about green revolution, we need to go back. We need to go back at its inception and practice, 60 years or 50 years ago. Why did green revolution bypass Africa? I mean, that's a question. One has to answer that. Okay, if they don't have the answer, why now? What's changed now? And then the green revolution has failed, has lots of irreversible environmental, social, cultural damage in Asia and Latin America and all these things. Do the people take into consideration the lessons that are learned from past mistakes? And then here's coming back to Africa. Africa as a continent is the most heterogeneous, the most diverse continent, where climatically, soil, ethnicity, vegetation, all this. This is it.
Hmm.
So these technologies are not because it's always avoiding it intimidates this technology, diversity and heterogeneity. So here's the new the agriculture or the green revolution and other things. What is it? Do they understand? I can tell you one example here. Way back in my student time, I mean, I haven't taken any economics. If you look at my transcript, it's not there. But I happened to be at the university attending a conference. So an economist talking about economic development across the globe. Word for word, this fellow said, if the African continent sink into the ocean, wouldn't make any difference to a global economy.
Really?
It doesn't have any, the wasted. And
Mm.
now, over the last 10, 20 years, the battle for Africa, scramble for Africa with this network technology. What has changed? What is this? Or maybe the leaders are receptive, responding. I don't know. So my thing is, yes, they are there, but do they take into consideration the lessons learned and then why Africa was bypassed and why now? What are the justification? In terms of sustainability, resilience, and other things. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they will succeed
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
Africa is highly heterogeneous and diverse.
Thank you. Yeah. Seeds, patents, and power. Let's talk about that. You describe seeds shifting from a shared commons to a patented commodities. When did that shift become dangerous?
I think just right after the Green Revolution,
Mm.
it's that's what, and then it continued in an expanded form, and it's just in our time that's what's happening. and
mm,
that the time. So let me put here. So that the time, and it continues to do that, but needs to
mm,
be stopped and need to be reversed.
mm. But, yeah, I mean, related to that also, you use the word biopiracy. What does it mean, for our listeners?
Well, it's plundering, it's stealing,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
perpetuates dependency. It controls
Mm-hmm.
the knowledge and practices and all these things. It just denies the sovereignty of
Mm,
farmers to choose to cultivate what they desire, what helps
mm,
them sustainable and resilient. Whether their knowledge
mm,
or genetic resources. That's just in
mm,
its place. For example, here in Canada, North America, a barley variety that came here saved the barley industry, from
mm,
uh, rust infestation. And then there
mm,
is a profit of hundreds of millions of dollars. It's patented.
mm,
If Ethiopia wants, has to buy that. That's not fair. No. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
I mentioned that in one of the meetings, and someone said, blame your ancestors. So no, so this is unacceptable. This is total. So we need what I learned from that. It just
Mm,
we get what we negotiate, not what we deserve. So that the
mm, yeah. In places like India, Bolivia, Honduras, how do farmers experience intellectual property regimes in practical terms?
and practical terms. I mean, these are different countries
Mm-hmm.
and different in leadership and other things, but the issue is the same. It's about
Mm-hmm.
resources, knowledge, and practices, and farmers. In
Mm-hmm.
India, there is a strong law, and it just is a strong civil society and others well organized. So there is, a benefit for the farmers, and farmers continue to conserve and diversify and use this, on farm. That's what have been working in farmers in northern and north southern India and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So there is it. So in Indian case, whether
Mm-hmm.
neem, and basmati rice and all these things, so just that in good shape. But still, they also serve, the multinational, the corporate interest. But by and large, the farmers are recognized. That's my experience. When you
Mm-hmm.
come to Bolivia and Honduras, there is huge commercial agriculture, and that laws are weak. It cannot, protect them. And then the way how they do it, the way, the farmers who collaborate with me, they continue their traditional, but at the same time, they are vulnerable. They say
Mm-hmm.
that this is a gift to humanity. All our Andean crops are, the gift, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not, but I'm hopeful that that will change. So there is a little bit of vulnerability, high vulnerability in Bolivia and Honduras. And then quinoa, for example, taken in Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen a salt tolerant cultivated crop like quinoa, which is high in the altiplano. And yet, in the same area, I saw quinoa farmers receiving highly refined macaroni and pasta and all these things. So that gives you lots of things. So there is
Mm-hmm.
high vulnerability in India, no, in Bolivia and Honduras, and there is a strong protection legally in India.
Yeah, in the battle for African agriculture, uh, is a core struggle about technology or about power. Is it a struggle about technology? Is it about power?
It's about power, simple and clean.
Mm-hmm.
Power, because technology with power cannot be implemented, cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
So we all have technology is everywhere, but that technology is
Mm-hmm.
implemented, influence, and all these things is through power. So we need to fight the power. It just is the
Mm-hmm.
power is the problem.
Mm-hmm. In new book, you outline five imperatives for collaborative agriculture and biodiversity. Can you name them, please? What are these five imperatives? And which of those five is most urgent for Africa right now?
These five thematic areas, imperatives, as you say, they are on outgrowths of my research product.
Mm-hmm.
So, after publishing peer-reviewed scientific papers and other things, and then I say I need to select, 10, 12 countries, and I need to give witness. And then I say, what are, binding themes that can I write about that? And then I came this five, and again based on this thing. If you look at seed, that is, seed means is at the heart of agriculture, things.
Mm-hmm.
And then most overlooked is agroclimatic resources, the soil,
Mm-hmm.
the climate. I say we
Mm-hmm.
need to talk about that because seeds and other diversity in the absence of agroclimatic resources, may not have the kind of thing, particularly the soil, except the photosynthetic, thing. All other growth factors comes through soil or through, from the soil. And then the building capacity, the training, particularly the young ones. We need to equip, we need to create the new generation of, who do agriculture. Not only that, we need to have the training, increase the
Mm-hmm.
awareness, change the
Mm-hmm.
attitude of people, because this is people created, people managed system, agroecosystem. That was another thing. Another one is loss to, storage and field pests, loss
Mm-hmm.
harvest, loss diversity, and the seed. So these five factors came, and then, it talks. So in this case, because we are talking about, African podcast interview, I think for Africa, we need to know more about the agroclimatic resources.
Mm-hmm.
The soils of Africa is misunderstood. The climate of Africa is misunderstood.
What do you
Or
mean by that? What do you mean by
mean,
that?
what do you mean by that? They think that in some cases they say just African soils are the heterogeneous. Yes, they are heterogeneous, unresponsive. And to some say whenever they see the green, and other things, they just jump into doing, intensive agriculture or technology. Or you go to the Sahel, it's so dry and the temperature is there. Oh, that we cannot do. But what I'm saying is we need to understand this highly heterogeneous, diverse, and complex systems are resilient, productive, sustain if we embrace them. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So, in fragile agroecological zones like Mali and Timor-Leste, how does diversity function as insurance?
Thank you. So diversity is a living insurance to anyone, particularly the two countries that you mentioned, Timor-Leste and Mali. They are contrasting here. Here, Timor-Leste is about 8, 10 degrees south of the equator. It's an island from Indian Ocean seashore all the way to here, top. There is a variety of production system, but is moisture rich, but the soils are so precarious. So here, the diversity through multiple cropping system, agroforestry, and then shifting cultivation, and then home gardening, diversity from the ground all the way to the canopy cover. That is a living insurance to ensure sustainability and resilience. You come to Mali, I just is moisture deficient, but high in temperature and heat, and the soils are rich in some carbonates and other things. So at the same time here, you need diversity in a different way. And to add to that, there is a pastoral system, the livestock component.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have an integrated approach. You need to bring the shrubs, the trees, the legumes to work all the throughout the agricultural calendar, the cropping season. So particularly take for example acacia albida. in Mali or across the Sahel. So here, you have intercropping, the grain crops and this legume tree. So if you have, say, 20 or 40 acacia albida tree, it's synergetic, it goes well, it gives close to 200, 300 kilogram per hectare nitrogen-based fertilizer. And not only that, when the grain crops grow, it loses its leaves. And so it does not compete, it doesn't compete with the others. So in both cases, multiple cropping system, mixture cropping system, agroforestry is the way to go. But their limitations, their constraint, that one is moisture rich, this one is moisture deficient, but in all cases, the common diversity is being used to address all these challenges.
Interesting. What evidence from your 10-country experience challenges the claim that diversity based system cannot feed growing populations?
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, if you look at the community level, you go to India, there are just, they liberated themselves from all this green revolution, industrial, commercial agriculture, and self-sustained at the community level. And then in all the program countries, collaborative program countries that have been at the community, including Ethiopia, as are self-sufficient, they do. But the challenge is the external force, their own government and other things. But at a country level, Cuba stands first. Cuba and it is proximity close to the United States, the superpower. It's suffering from embargo for how many years, all this policy and other things. And then in terms of industrial agriculture, commercial agriculture is ideal, and conducive, but there was crisis. It just didn't work. So here is a product of collective people, commitment, vision, solidarity. They say, no, this is not working. We need to bring a new agriculture. So they abandon that. Now, Cuba is #1 country from all the collaborating countries that they busted the myth that diversity-based agriculture can feed a modern nation like Cuba. Mind you here, is not a substitute, input, output, is not substituting inorganic by organic. This is a whole ball game, a new agriculture, diversity-based in all its dimensions. So Cuba is #1, and there are others. I mean, you go to Honduras, that they have their own thing at the community level.
Well, this is impressive. Impressive. Would love to go to Cuba. I was invited to 2 times, but I couldn't make it anyway. If African governments took your framework seriously, what structural frameworks would be necessary?
Well, again, for Africans, we need to put our acts together. We need to understand, learn, know. We need to have the commitment, the sensitivity, the resources that we have within our system, resources internal to the system that has highly diverse, complex, and heterogeneous. So that's the way to go, using diversity-based practices. So we start within what we have. So that's the strategy, resources within. And then, yes, no country, no continent, no indigenous, an island. This is a globalization. Agricultural biodiversity is a unifying language. So, and then you add case by case, strategically, what can work, what can enhance, what can add, not displace, not undermining, not displacing or deceiving, distracting. So again and again, Africa needs to put its act together by recognizing what we have within our system, within our continent.
Okay. Let's talk about the strategic leverage that all the countries that you studied have, you know. Um, let's take Ethiopia, for example. Ethiopia is a center of origin, as you said, but many regions you studied hold similar genetic wealth. Does the global north fully recognize its dependence on global south biodiversity?
Yes, they do recognize. They do
Okay.
recognize diversity is it. But the moment you bring improving the livelihood of farmers, the moment you bring, the farmers and the equation that. So the concern about biodiversity, its conservation or loss is just across. But the
Mm-hmm.
moment, the approach, the method, how to use, how to conserve, and then involving farmer-based and other things, that is the issue because that tests their power and authority. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, they recognize and the indicators, as you know, all right up after the green version, its impact, the gene bank, the national gene bank, international gene banks. I mean, you come here to the United States, in Colorado, or Leningrad in Russia, and all these major power. These are indicated that they need that diversity. And then now, in our time, in the high Arctic Norway, the Doomsday Bank, that show that without diversity, no existence. So yes,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
They do.
But if African land races disappear, who loses more, African or global industrial agriculture?
Okay, that's a good question. As you say, what are these land races? That's historic. This is the foundation rock, the foundation stock to our food system. No question about that.
Mm.
But they have been by and large marginalized, rejected, underutilized, and particularly in Africa, that there are many crops, genetic resources that are not known, or it
Mm.
just purposefully undermined, including by
Mm.
Africans themselves. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you go to West Africa, we have got African rice, but
Yeah,
the
I know.
staple diet is Asian or American rice. I mean,
Mm.
okay.
Mm.
So, to answer your question, losing land races is a loss to humanity, but losing African land races disproportionately, Africans could suffer more. The reason being that there is the displacing varieties or
Mm.
technology come into place is a disaster. Let me tell you, Ethiopia, this is one of the major centers, a small country, it contributes. This is the research that I read, come across.
Mm-hmm.
10% at the global level, contributes 10% to the global agriculture, the genetic resources. That's huge. So losing the Ethiopian land races has huge impact on the global agriculture. So what
Mm.
I'm saying is, well, Ethiopia because it has, the temperate and other, climatic conditions, but as an Africa as a continent, there are huge undermined, not known, and neglected, underused, orphan crops. That is terrible language to use. So
Yeah, I
losing
agree.
that, yeah, no,
I
that's
agree.
totally wrong. That has to
Mm.
change.
Yeah,
So losing disproportionately, yes, we Africans suffer, but it has huge global impact and humanity will also lose.
I agree. Um, you promote participatory methodologies for studying farmer seeds, even enhancing the productivity, as Dr. Malaku would like to say. We need to enhance productivity of crops, but we have to do it in a participatory way. I just wanted to understand what distinguishes it from the main research methodologies. And in addition to that, critics say that participatory approaches are too slow. Is speed the right metric for food security?
No, slowness or slow is not the right metric to
Mm-hmm.
assess or to say that. There are other things. So when you talk participatory plant breeding, participatory varietal selection, even participatory natural resource management is not only for political, thing. It's just it has to be faithful. It has to be functional, and then collaborative. So here, when you say participatory plant breeding, the farmers are on the driver's seat. It's farmer-led, and then
Mhm.
is not in a controlled environment. It is
Mhm.
on the farmer's field. So to enhance diversity. So the parameter should be the ownership, the diversity that is generated from the participatory plant
Mhm.
breeding, the income security, the desirability, the adaptive response capacity, and the variety that was the product of participatory plant
Mhm.
breeding stays in the system. It's not a threat, it's enhancing. It doesn't perpetuate dependency. It's multidimensional, whereas the institutional plant breeding, the criteria is one, is in a controlled environment, is someone leading, and then is controlled, certified, patented, controlled by the national research or multinational seed companies and other things. So ownership is different, and then is a risk to dissociate. It perpetuates disempathy. Every time you have to go, this one is diversity, but enhancing diversity. So the desirability, the regenerative capacity, the integrative capacity of these products, not only
Okay.
the economic, and that should be the parameter to measure.
Okay. We're almost finalizing and concluding. I'm remaining with two questions. After decades of global work, what worries you most about African agricultural trajectory?
It worries me very much, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I'm hopeful. What it worries me is now the business as usual practices of economic gain, credits, and productivity, the kind of thing that's being implemented and advocated, promoted, that is dangerous. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that there shouldn't be productivity or income or economic gain, but it has to be diversity based. So,
Mhm.
and at the
Mhm.
same time, it worries me the destructive, destructive impact of all these technologies and leadership, particularly to them, is deceptive, is destructive. So displacing all this worry me. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that African will realize, not only African, the whole world will realize, the importance of diversity-based practices.
Finally, and if Africa leaders could take one decisive action to secure the continent's agricultural future, what should it be?
Africans should look into their own system. They need to embrace diversity, heterogeneity, complexity. They need to declare their freedom. So
Mhm.
work on what they have on themselves. So that's one number. But at the same time, no one is an island. We live on, sharing the same planet. And then add what is workable, what is sustainable, what is enhancing, what is enabling, not perpetuating from the outside. So the first and important thing is just to work resources within, and particularly working on the young ones through
Yeah.
networking, awareness, and community. Just it has to be intensified, not only complaining or anything, but by innovation, by practice, by wisdom. Look, by strengths. That's the way to go.
Mhm.
That will do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aguicho. Thank you for coming to my podcast. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure those who are watching this episode will enjoy it very much. Thank you.